Hi, I'm Sarah Pylon. This is part 2 of my guest closet turned office makeover. On this video, I'm going to go over how I put the finishing touches on this little makeover. If you missed part 1, I shared how I put this vertical shiplap up for only $32. So if you want to go and check that out, it is the video uploaded right before this one. So let's get into it. The filing cabinets just arrived. I'm going to put those together with little chicky chick here. And then I had this idea of putting some kind of wooden legs on the bottoms of the filing cabinets. It comes with like these little plastic wheels, but those look so cheap. And because like they're sitting on carpet, they're not gonna work very well. Anyway, they're going to be stationary, so why not slap some legs on there? Make it look a little bit more professional. And there's 2 different kinds of legs that I'm looking at. I think I know which one I'm going to do, but I'm going to be putting a poll up on Instagram and we'll see if the poll agrees with me or not. And then we'll get those installed. I was going to record the whole putting the filing cabinet together, but it is going to take me so long. I'm just going to save you from watching that. Plus I have a second one to do. Maybe I'll record that one. I'm not really sure. So here are the 2 legs that I'm trying to decide between to add to the bottom of the filing cabinet. Okay, this one's super cute. It's the one I'm kind of leaning towards, but I'm thinking this might be better for like adding the height. This is like $2.50 a piece and these are $4.50. Decent price difference. One thing that I would be excited about with these is I would spray paint this part gold to match the brackets and the lights that I'm going to put in. But I still think like any kind of wood is going to soften the look and give it a little bit more texture. The nice thing with these guys is you buy these little hardware plates and all you do is you attach these to whatever you want to add the legs to and you just screw them on in there. I went with the straight plates, which means the legs will just go up and down. There are angled ones that will put the leg at an angle if that's the look that you're going for. The dilemma though that I have is the filing cabinet is very thin, the boards. Like this is how thin the bottom of the filing cabinet is. And with this, I wonder if I attached it like that. So you're supposed to attach it like this. Okay. But my dilemma is the screws that it came with would shoot up the top. Is that a big deal? It probably isn't. Actually, because of the drawer, like there wouldn't necessarily be a way of it getting nicked. So I'm going to play around with that. And if that's the case, I'll probably just shoot it through like this. Another option would be to flip this around, which might look a little ghetto, but maybe you wouldn't be able to see it. But then you wouldn't be shooting through the top. So for that reason, I might only be putting a screw, like 2 screws on the outside where there is another piece. So then I'm not risking popping out the other side of the surface. I hope that makes sense. But I'm going to add these on and then see what I think of the legs once they're on. So I did determine that even if the screws go through the bottom of the cabinet a little bit, it's really not that big of a deal. You can't even see it and it doesn't interfere with the drawer opening or closing. What I've been doing is putting a pilot hole on just 3 of the screw holes and not doing the 4th one in the middle. And that seems to be working really well. All I'm really doing is going in a very little bit just to puncture this like finish. and then putting the screws in. And I'm just easing the screws in very gently because I don't want anything to split. This is particle board, so it's a little bit forgiving, but you also just want to be gentle. Now we'll take these cute little guys and just screw them in like that. Instagram did establish that those small little cute round ones were too small, and I tend to agree. These ones still seem a little bit big though, so I got these. Look how cute these are. Same style, but a little bit shorter. So I'm gonna try that on this guy, do it side by side, and see which one just works better with my chair. Because right now, this one with the 6-inch legs, it's almost like too tall for my chair, because the desktop is going to be another inch above. So hopefully these work out. I'm a little scared because they're so tiny, but we're gonna try it. Okay, here are the little handles that came with the filing cabinet. I spray painted them gold. They were like a off-white. I think they were trying to make it look metal. These are very much plastic, but spray painted, they look so much better. I'm honestly thinking about not spray painting the bottoms of the legs anymore, because I'm going with the shorter ones. You can hardly even tell that they're not gold. Quite honestly, they look gold. So I'm just gonna save myself the hassle and not do that. I do need to take the tags off these though. Oh, these guys are so cute. How nice does that look? Oh my gosh. I'm gonna work on getting this shelf up. These are the brackets that I got. They go like this against the wall. And I'm gonna be spray painting them gold. I got 4 of them because the length of this is like 6.5, 7 feet. And I don't want anything to be bowing. I'm gonna be screwing these into studs. I might only need 3. I have to mark the studs first. I'm using this guy that my mother-in-law got me. It is great because I can do like a deep scan, and it will also tell me if there's any like live electrical or something that's not wood behind there, like HVAC, metal, anything like that. We'll just see what we find. Here, 1 here. Since there are 5 studs, we're just gonna do the 2 outside ones and then 1 in the center. It's not gonna be the center of the office. It's kind of the way that it is. Here is my spray painting setup. Just using the Amazon box that the filing cabinets came in. This is the color that I'm using. Rust-Oleum Universal Age Metallic in Vintage Gold. I'm hoping this will give kind of like a brass look. And I figure like even if it doesn't, I'm gonna be spray painting everything this color. So it's all gonna match. But like a brass is kind of what I'm going for. While the paint on the other brackets is drying, I have this extra one because I bought 4. I wasn't sure how many I was going to use. And I'm going to get the pilot holes drilled for at least the center one. And then I'll add the other ones because I need them actually in place to make sure everything's level and whatnot. I got my little level pencil, and then the bracket. I marked out the studs already, so it's just figuring out where I want it height-wise, and then making sure that it's level horizontally so it's not twisted like that. So my go-to for drilling pilot holes, which is just so then you're not splitting any wood or anything like that, is 1/8. That's just my go-to. All right. Now I'm gonna go see if those are dry because I'm getting sick of it. Look how pretty the gold turned out. For connecting it into the wall, I'm going to use these 1 3/4 inch Starbit screws. Starbit screws are far superior to anything. And bonus, these are gold, so I don't have to necessarily paint these to make sure that it matches the bracket. It looks so good. Okay, now to do the other ones and get it straight. When doing brackets, ideally you would have a long level, and I don't. What I'm going to use instead is a straight board and then my little level sitting on top of the board to ensure straightness. They look so pretty. All right, now I have the board upstairs that I'm using for the shelf. I just have to cut it down to size, and then I should probably sand it, I suppose. Get it up here, and then I also have to drill pilot holes in that. Well, I just cut the shelf and I was talking to myself because I forgot to hit the record button. What I was saying in the video when I was talking to myself, when I'm dealing with any kind of boards, wood boards, I always trim off a little bit on the end that I'm not necessarily cutting, just so then I have clean sides on both ends, if that makes sense. So when you get a piece of wood from, here, I'll use this little guy. When you get a piece of wood from the hardware store or wherever, it usually is pretty rough like this. Okay. And then by just cutting a little bit off, it can literally be a blade width. Not much at all. It just gives a clean edge to that board. Now we're gonna see if this one that I cut down will fit. I've noticed with this board, there is a very slight bow in it, which a 12-inch board that's 8 feet long, it's like to be expected. So what you want to do if you're using it as a shelf is do it so then it bows down. Once I screw it into the brackets, it should level out, but it's just a good rule of thumb to bow it down, because then once you put stuff on it too, it should even out. All right, so you see how it doesn't? It's a little wonky, but that's fine. It'll be good. Now that I know that this fits, I'll take it down, sand it down to get rid of this yellow hue. I don't think I'm gonna finish it. I should, I just don't want to. And then we can install it. I wonder if I just sanded like the fronts and then the bottom and kept the top with the protective thing on it. I might do that just so then like you'll be able to see the pretty neutral wood tones, and then the top will still have that like protectant layer on it. So I'm going to be using 220 grit sandpaper to just basically just remove the yellow from this pine board. You should be able to see it in the video. I am going to use the leftover screws from the plates that I used to attach the legs to the filing cabinets. I have 8 of these screws left over and I'm just gonna use these. The heads are big enough, they're not gonna fall through the brackets. I only have 8 of them. I need 9, but it's fine. We are going to just make do. So these are the wall sconces that I got for the office area. I'm actually going to be hanging them like this and spray painting this part gold. These are not going to be hardwired in. But what I am going to do is use these rechargeable puck lights and stick them up inside the glass piece, and hopefully these work really well. They're motion activated, and most importantly, they are rechargeable. They have smaller puck lights that are round that are battery operated, but I didn't like the idea of having to rebuy batteries all the time. So we're gonna give these a try. If these don't end up working, I will be going to the battery operated little puck light. The deal with these lights is I'm still going to use the same mounting hardware, just instead of putting it on a light box, I'm just going to screw it directly to the wall. The problem is I want to make sure that it's centered on where my office, like my computer setup, is going to be, which may or may not hit studs. I'm thinking it probably won't. So we're gonna see. Yeah, I don't think I'm gonna hit studs here. I found some anchors, but I hate these kind of anchors. They really suck, but these lights are relatively light. So we're just gonna go with it. First we gotta figure out, like, this is my center right here, which is kind of nice. This is my center, so I'm thinking like one here and maybe one here. All right, so if I'm sitting, I want the lights in this general area. Okay, so a lot of the photos that I've seen, the sconces were like kind of at eye level, like when you stand up. So I think, so I do 58, they would be about 3 feet above the desk. Maybe I'll just do one one screw because, so this is meant to be like in a light box, not against the wall. So like these screws, I can't tighten anything because it would be flush against the wall, right? So by eliminating this flat piece just all together, and then I can screw this, I can just do one screw right in the middle with an anchor. Should be good. We'll see, I guess, but I'm gonna mark, I marked the 5 feet up, and then I'm gonna mark the center of the shiplap, put my, drill a hole for my anchor, and then screw it in. Let's see if they're straight. To figure out which like drill bit size to use, I literally just like hold it up, and if the bit is about as wide as the anchor, that's the one I use. Okay, take your crappy little anchor. It looks good. It looks good. It's okay. All right. I don't know who needs to hear this, but you're supposed to remove this off of your light fixtures. Even if they're not glass and you can't really see them, take them off. I dinged up the brackets a little bit. I'm too impatient. They look pretty good from the front. It's honestly all I care about. Stop it right now. Are you for real? Oh my gosh, that looks so good. I'm not exactly sure where I'm gonna have these just yet. The plan is that the desktop, the wood top that I have, is gonna just sit on top of these. I might screw them in through the bottom. I just don't know if I want to like ruin the tops of these. So we're just gonna see how it does just resting on it. The tabletop that I got, it's fairly heavy. So I'm just hoping the weight of it plus computer, printer, all those things will just weigh it down so it won't like shift or anything. What I'm going to be doing is figuring out how far away from the wall I want these cabinets to be. And then I'm going to measure from that corner to that corner, as well as from this area to this area, because walls are janky. I might need to cut things at an angle to get it to fit as snug as possible. I am not going to be building any kind of a brace underneath it because I want this all to be able to be taken out if we, for whatever reason, want to convert this back into a closet, or whenever we sell the house, the next people want it to be a closet. Then this whole area would be able to just be removed without putting giant holes in the wall or destroying anything wall-wise. I'm thinking of cutting the top down to 21 inches. And then I can always adjust the filing cabinets, you know, to come out or go in or whatever. 22 inches just seems too much. I don't know. The top that I got is 24 inches, which I know is going to be, I guess, too tight with the trim and everything like that. And I just don't want it sticking that far out over the filing cabinets. And like I already have a pretty decent gap back here. Maybe we'll go with 22 inches. I'll see how it fits. And then if I want to cut another inch off, I can. This is the material that I'm going to be using, 5/4, which means it's a true inch thick. I use this exact same stuff, but 36 inches wide, not 24, as our dining room table. So I'm going to treat it the exact same way. I don't think I'm going to be staining it. I'll just seal it, sand it, seal it, and call it good. I need to trim a 1/2 inch off this side and then 2 inches off whichever side is the most beat up. So when you're cutting with a circular saw, you just need to make sure that you take into account the depth or the distance between this guardrail and the blade itself. I know on this one it is 1 inch and 1/8. So I'll clamp this board down 1 inch and 1/8 away from the line that I want cut. Perfect. Now I'm going to cut this the long way. I already see a ding on this side, so that's the part that I'm going to cut off. And everything else can be sanded out. So we'll set this down, cut it most of the way, and then reposition it. Because I had very limited space on my phone, I was not able to record the whole process of sanding this down, and I put the first coat of polyacrylic on. I am doing the underside first, so then I can flip it over, and like if the bottom side gets a little dinged up or whatever, I don't really care. The top is the most important thing. I sanded it first with 120 grit. The lower the number, the rougher the sandpaper is. So 120, smoothed it all down, and then I went over it again with 220 before putting the first coat of sealer on. Now, I've made the mistake before of just finishing with the 120, calling it good, and putting the sealant on. But here's the thing that I did not know. You have to do a higher number, like a finer grit sandpaper, to help the wood grain accept the sealer. If you don't, the sealer is literally just going to sit on top of the wood and it's not going to absorb into the wood and do what it's supposed to do. I've done 1 coat of the polyacrylic. After the first coat of anything, whether it's paint, sealer, stain, whatever, you have to sand it afterwards. It kind of makes the wood feel fuzzy almost, and just doing a light sand and you will be good to go. I think I'm just going to do 2, maybe 3 coats on the bottom. We'll see. For sure, I'm gonna do 3 coats on the top. And what I use is water-based polyacrylic. I will literally never go back to polyurethane ever again. Polyacrylic is incredible. Not only is it water-based, so it makes cleanup really easy, the fumes are really low, but my absolute favorite feature is that when it dries clear and it does not yellow over time. Polyurethane is an oil-based product, so over time, it turns yellow because oil is yellow. I apply this with a specific made polyacrylic brush. It's just a straight edge 2-inch brush. I have done a roller before, and unless you roll over it 100 times, there's gonna be all these little bubbles that form and they dry, and you basically have to sand it all back down, start all over. So the best way I found is just brushing it on, and it dries fairly quickly. So I'm gonna run over this really quickly with 220 grit sandpaper. This is my like $30 corded teardrop sander. I freaking love this thing. I love that I can get into like corners and everything with this teardrop deal. Other options for sanders are orbital sanders, which are round and they turn, which I've heard are great. And then there's like square ones that like vibrate. This one vibrates. And then there's belt sanders. Belt sanders are pretty intense. I rarely use them. I think I've used it once in my entire life and it terrified me. It takes off a lot of the wood. This doesn't take off that much. When you're sanding wood, you always want to make sure you're going with the grain of the wood. Once we're done with that, we're just gonna clean it off. I don't feel like going inside and getting a rag, so we're just gonna do this. You can use like a tack cloth. You can buy it at like the hardware store. Or my typical go-to is just like a damp microfiber rag to just pick up that dust before you do another coat of the sealer. Now, one thing to just like notice with polyacrylic versus, snow just fell off my car, scared the crap out of me. One thing you want to notice with polyacrylic versus polyurethane, polyacrylic is very liquidy. It is very runny. It looks like milk. Like, do you see that? It's got a very milky look, but it dries clear. And it also dries very quickly, which is nice because then you can get like all your coats on in a decent amount of time. And again, you want to apply this with the grain of the wood. If you're ever in the middle of a painting job or a ceiling job, you don't have to wash your brush in between coats if you need things to dry. Grab yourself a bag or saran wrap or whatever to just keep your brush in. Stick it in the fridge and it'll be good for whenever you're ready to put the second coat on. Now, polyacrylic dries really fast, right? That's like one of the benefits of it. One of the things I really love about it. It says to lightly sand after at least 2 hours. Honestly, that 1 to 2 hour mark, things are pretty much all dry and ready to go. So I'll put a third coat on yet tonight, and then I will let it set completely overnight before I flip it over and do the top. Also get this in different kinds of finishes. I love the matte finish that they have, but I have this giant gallon of clear satin, which is really pretty. It's got a very, very light sheen, but I already have a gallon of it. Like, I'm not gonna go buy a matte can for every single project. I'm just gonna use the one that I have. I finished our dining room table in the matte polyacrylic. I did like 3 or 4 coats, I think, and it is holding up so, so well. There is one spot where Tyler sits where it's chipped, I don't know how it happened, but it did somehow, but it's not a big deal. All that I'll do come summertime, I'll just sand that area a little bit, restain it, and hopefully it looks good. And you know, if it doesn't, I'll just resand the whole thing and restain it, reseal it, not a big deal. As I'm sitting here talking, I can see that the polyacrylic is drying on the wood. So I'll be able to put a third coat on this, no problem, tonight. And then tomorrow it'll be ready to do the top side. I will also say that I am not doing the sides until I do the top, because the polyacrylic is very thin and it can run. So like when I do the sides, it could drip down, and I would rather it drip down on the bottom versus the top. It's very easy to sand down once it dries, but that's just something to be aware of when using it. I will be cutting a hole in the back of the desktop for this little guy, which is called a desk grommet. This little guy. I think I'm gonna have him like that because I have a monitor, a computer, and a printer, at least, that are like cords are gonna be going through this. So I think having this little top piece is not gonna work out, but we're gonna cut that out before I seal the top, so then I can sand down the edges, make sure that's all good to go. I will be cutting it with this guy. It's a whole saw, 1.5 inches, because that's as big as this grommet. I wanted a 2-inch one. Menards didn't have any, even though it said on their website they did. It's fine. This just goes right onto my drill. See, it has like this little drill bit. You screw this into the wood, and it keeps everything stable as the saw cuts into it and makes that like bigger sized hole. Shoot. Okay, I gotta shave off a little bit on one side. Freaking. Now to work on that shelf that I'm gonna put on that ledge on the left side. So I have this scrap piece. I don't know what this is from. I'm gonna cut this down to the length that I need, and then I'm also going to rip it down. Nice. Maybe I'll just use the other side that I just cut off. Stick that there. And then I'll nail this down. I'll probably need to put some shims. some shims under there. I was going to use wireless rechargeable puck lights for these pendants because I did not hardwire anything in. But one of my sister-in-laws sent me a link for these rechargeable bulbs that I'm just going to use instead. They were maybe $2 more than the set of 3 puck lights, but look how good that looks. And it hits my desktop perfectly. Nothing is really darkened. There's a little bit of a shadow there, but it's back far enough that it's not covering up any of my work area, which is fantastic. It seemed like they had a pretty long lifespan as far as one single charge, but whenever I need to charge them again, I just have to take them out and put them into a socket that is live. So a bedside lamp or one of the lamps in the living room, turn it on for a little while to charge the bulb, and then we are ready to go again. Thank you so much for watching. This was such a fun little project to do, to turn a space that was otherwise pretty useless for us into something that is functional, it's pretty, and something that I'm going to be able to use more on a regular basis instead of cluttering up our table or island or anything like that. Now I have a designated space for all things office business related. And I just love how pretty it is, like the pink and the gold and then the floral art. I just love it so much. If you found this video helpful or inspirational in any way, I would love it if you gave it a thumbs up, and be sure to subscribe so then you can stay up to date with all the home projects and different DIYs that we do in the future.